Hey, what's up? Ken from Palm Beach Dyno here. Figured I'd do a quick tech video. We've seen some problems with remotely tuned cars that we've discovered. A common mistake people are making on 2018 Mustang GTs, specifically on turbo applications, and it's related to valve springs. But before I go into detail on what the problem is, I wanted to kind of take this opportunity for those people that aren't as knowledgeable on how engines operate. You know, you hear all these buzzwords on Facebook, valve float, this and that, but a lot of people don't even know exactly what we're talking about, so we're going to discuss that first and then talk about the problem that the 2018 Mustang GT has. The 2018 Mustang GT doesn't have problems. It's a mistake people are making that is causing problems. So first off, here's a look of inside the cylinder head. This is obviously just a generic drawing, I believe, from cams. This is the valve stem, so under here is the valve. And normally either on a pushrod motor, a rocker arm, or on a modular Coyote type engine, it's called a cam follower, or there's all different names for it. But either way, the cam acts on the tip of this valve via a lever and pushes the valve down. And the spring's job is to keep the valve closed. Makes, you know, good sense, obviously. The problem is as you rev up an engine, the demands of the valve spring go way up because the valve is moving so quickly. Now, compound that by the Coyote's high revving nature, and you know, you got to be a little bit careful on when you change valve springs in these engines. So the big problem that we're discussing is what's called valve float, okay? And it's going to be most common on a turbo application. And the reason it's common on a turbo application as opposed to a supercharged application is a turbo has much higher demands on a valve spring than, say, a supercharged application. On a supercharged application, you're typically dealing with, you know, regular atmosphere in the exhaust. You might have a hair of back pressure. Depending on your exhaust system, it could be a PSI or two, or maybe if you have cats, obviously it could be higher. We're not going to talk about how catalytic converters affect this. We're talking about more of a overall like race type application that doesn't have catalytic converters. But a supercharged application with clogged catalytic converters can have valve float and issues like this. So on a turbo application, especially a street turbo application, you're always going to have pressure between the exhaust valve and the turbo at wide open throttle above atmosphere. Typically, in years and years ago, everybody would say 2 to 1 is the most you want. Really, we don't want anywhere near that nowadays with the efficiency that we're getting with turbo kit applications or the systems and all that. But let's just use that number. So at 10 pounds of boost, you're going to have 20 PSI of pressure in your exhaust. So that's at a 2 to 1 ratio. Hopefully we're not there. Many things are going to affect back pressure, and that is before the turbo and after the turbo. So if you have a very restrictive exhaust after the turbocharger, that will stack up to pressure prior to the turbocharger. So why is that important? Well, on a turbo car, as the valve opens, the exhaust is trying to escape. If there's pressure there, you're actually getting that, let's say there's 20 PSI of pressure in your exhaust. That 20 PSI of pressure is pushing on the back of the exhaust valve. So you are effectively getting 20 PSI less of pressure on your spring. So let's go ahead and look at both 15 through 17 Mustangs and 2018 Mustangs and talk about what valve springs they have, what kind of pressures that they use. And the big number that we talk about is called seat pressure. So seat pressure would be when the valve is closed, how much preload there is that is holding that valve shut. So let's look at this right here. So this is for a 2017 Mustang. I assume 15 through 17 are all the same. Right here, this number, you can get all this from Ford. The valve spring installed force is 265 newtons. Newton is a standard, but we're used to talking in pounds of force, so we'll go ahead and convert that. I believe it is, so we'll do 265, is that what it was? Yeah, 265 point, oops, 265 times 0.224. I'm going off memory here, guys. I'm pretty sure that's right. There's a couple more decimals, but for argument's sake, this is good enough. So what that means is there's 59 pounds of pressure when this is closed. This is a 17 Mustang, okay? So now, this is where the problem starts. Well, there's two things that happen here, okay? This is actually not the bigger problem. There's two problems. People are assuming that the 15 through 17 Mustang and the 18 plus Mustang are very similar in their head geometry, other than, you know, there's things like direct injection and that stuff, but that's not true, okay? So let's first compare this number to an 18 Mustang. So right now, we're at 59 roughly on the seat. If you look at, wow, look at this. That's compression force, hold on. The installed force is 293, so that's on the seat newtons. .65, so, you know, we've got better valve springs in the 2018 Mustang. They went from 59 to 65, okay? So now, what's happening and what we're seeing is a lot of these people, well, first off, because of everybody freaking out on the internet about back pressure and valve float on stock Mustang motors with turbo kits. First off, I don't really see that being a problem with the sleeper kit, which is what we push. We've had really no issues, or very minor issues. Sometimes it's been because of a super restrictive exhaust after the turbo, but in general, we really haven't had issues on the 18s. But people are trying to be proactive by putting valve springs in these engines so they don't have any problems. Except they do have one problem. They're not looking into what's called the installed height, okay? The installed height, which we saw in this first diagram, is this. After the valve is installed, this is the retainer, and then there's a clip, the valve lock, basically, keeper, goes down on here and locks all this in. And then this height, from the base of the spring to the bottom of where the spring sits on the retainer, that's called the installed height, okay? So that is very important measurement when you're putting a valve spring in, because this height, as anybody knows on a spring, if you made this height smaller, you're gonna have more preload on the spring. But what happens if you make this taller? You're gonna have less preload on the spring. And that's the problem that people are having, and that's what this video is about. Probably the most popular valve spring for a Coyote is the PAC 1234X. I have those in my engine. I think most people I know are using those springs or some variation of that spring. So what did people do when the 2018 Mustang came out? Boom, let's get the PAC 1234X, that's the go-to spring. But there's one problem. Let's go back to the specs. If you look at a 2017 Mustang, where is it? That's valve spring free length. Okay, right here. Valve spring installed height, okay? Intake and exhaust are the same. We'll use inches because we're Americans. 1.5748, okay? Now we go over the 2018 Mustang. Oh no, look at that, 1.7913. The 2015 through 2017 Mustang has a different installed height than a 2018 Mustang, and it's a significant amount. It's 0.216 and some change difference. So what do you do about that? Well, first off, what happens? Okay, so now you've got a valve spring that's intended to increase valve spring pressure, but you're installing one that's intended for a 157 installed height. You're putting it in an engine with a 179 installed height. You're basically taking, you know, pressure out of that spring when it's at rest. And the valve's job is, or the spring's job is to hold the valve closed. So let's show you that. I found some videos on YouTube. They're very low quality, but I think you'll be able to see them. Here's a valve opening in super slow motion. This is like 8,000 RPM, and you can see the tip of the valve bouncing around. It's kind of hard to see but it's bouncing. And that's basically what happens with valve float. You get loft, so as the rocker arm or cam follower goes down, it almost throws the spring and you get separation between the tip of the valve. Here's another video that's really good. This right here is showing you the actual valve itself right here. Look, there's the valve opening, and then look, it closes and then it bounces, okay? That's a big problem, and that's what some of these people are seeing in these situations where they're having what we're calling valve float. There's just no control of the valve. So the valve opens, it goes to close, and it bounces, and when it bounces, everything goes to crap. It sounds sort of like a rev limiter. So that's the real big problem on a setup like this. So now the next question is, what's the solution? We've got roughly 0.210 difference. Well, you can shim valve springs. So what is a shim? It's basically a very exact sized washer that you put under the spring. And while that's not a bad option, I know of at least one of the most respected engine builders I respect is doing it that way. But another one that I respect greatly, and that I used to build all of our engines here at Palm Beach Dyno, NPR Racing engines, instead of shimming the Pack 1234X by 0.210, they've come up with a different spring retainer combination so you don't have to shim the valve springs. So, you know, the whole reason for this video is, and any of these videos that I do that discuss tech isn't just to throw information out there that everybody knows. I'm trying to pick things that people are making mistakes on to help save you some trouble in the long run. So this is a big one because to put valve springs in one of these engines is a big job, and like I said, I just got done helping somebody diagnose this problem. I didn't even know that they had installed valve springs in it, and I was messing with the tune, and maybe it's plug gap, pull plug, no problem. And then he mentioned valve springs, and I was like, hold on a second, what valve springs are in it? Pack 1234X. Are they shimmed? No. Bam, that's the problem. But that doesn't help anybody but him, so this video is to help you guys not make that mistake in the future. If you have any more suggestions on tech videos, things you want me to discuss like this, show a little bit more in depth, please put that in the comments. Please subscribe to this video, like this video, share this video. The more you guys share this, the more people we get, the more ideas we get, and we can all come up with good tech videos to help you guys out long term. Anyway, that's it for now, and we'll see you on the next one.